Victor Davis Hanson is a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution. He's also a lifelong multi-generational Californian. He just wrote a column describing his state as America's first third world state. Professor Hanson joins us tonight. Professor, thanks very much for coming on. In what sense is California a third world state?
Well, it has all the symptoms of what we associate with failed states. It's got the highest basket of income tax, gasoline taxes, sales tax, and yet its schools are rated in the last 10%, the bottom 10% of the nation's test scores. 1/3 of the nation's welfare recipients live in California. 1/5 of the population, as you said, is below the poverty line. 1/5 of all the homeless people in the United States live in California. We have a medieval society, Tucker, of a very tiny but very affluent elite. We have the most billionaires of any state in the nation, and then we have the largest underclass. And part of that, Governor Newsom's got it exactly wrong. 25 years ago, when we had Prop 187 that cut off health care, but not emergency health care, to undocumented immigrants, that passed by 59% of the population. It fueled Pete Wilson's come up from behind victory over Kathleen Brown. It was very popular, but 3 days later, a federal court invalidated it, and that got rid of the deterrent factor, and people wanted to come to California, often illegally, and they resided here illegally. And that was, unfortunately, part of a perfect storm, where at the same time 4 to 6 million people over the next 25 years said, if I'm going to pay the highest basket of taxes and get the worst roads, infrastructure, public schools, and among the highest crime rates — San Francisco, by the way, has the highest property per capita crime rate of major cities in the United States — then I might as well go where there's no income taxes, like Nevada or Florida. And the third wind in that perfect storm was, it came at the same time in the late 90s, middle 90s, of the growth of Silicon Valley. So eventually, over the next quarter century, Google, Facebook, Apple would be capitalized at about $3 trillion. We created a very small but influential, wealthy, manorial class that was not subject to the ramifications of their own ideology. By that I mean, when Jerry Brown retired, he didn't live here in Fresno. He went to Grass Valley with his pension. Dianne Feinstein didn't put her kids, her daughter, in the public schools. She lives in Pacific Heights, not Redwood City. Nancy Pelosi rails about education, but none of her grandchildren were in the San Francisco public schools. So we've created a very wealthy class that doesn't mind high taxes because it has ways to navigate around that and poor social services. And the people in between are sort of like peasants outside of a medieval keep that can't survive, and so they drift off. And we were left with a sort of a romanticized indigent class, and then a royal elite that doesn't really care about the vanishing middle class at all.
From the outside, Professor, this doesn't look like a sustainable system at all. It looks like it's teetering. Do the people running it sense that, or do they think they can continue forever?
Well, they all have one thing in common. I mean, if we look at Gavin Newsom or Dianne Feinstein or former Senator Boxer or Nancy Pelosi or Mark Zuckerberg are the architects of this system. They're all multi-millionaires, in some cases multi-billionaires. And so they have a sort of a psychological penance. They feel good about being virtuous in the abstract. But meanwhile, on the ground level, I mean, we're sort of like Constantinople under Justinian, the 6th century AD. We've seen the return of things like typhus, infections near the City Hall of Los Angeles. We've seen epidemics of hepatitis A. We've got 140,000 people that are living on the streets in California. And we just built a high-speed rail system that we canceled, and now we're going to, out of shame or, I guess, pride, we're going to try to build Merced to Bakersfield, a high-speed rail to nowhere, where the 3 main laterals, Tucker, the 99, I-5, and 101, have never achieved their intended result of 6 lanes. So it's sort of like Road Warrior in the pre-modern world, where we dream of a postmodern high-speed rail system that'll never be built.
There is it is a lot like Road Warrior. Funny you said that. Professor, thank you very much for that, but that sad but decisive update.
Yeah, it's tragic.
It is tragic.